a survey out to. And out of those, we got about 900 responses, which is pretty good, 7.5% response rate. These aren't necessarily representative customers. They could be. It isn't necessarily people who did projects or not. It's those who agreed to sign up on a list. But I think that the findings that we found here are corroborated through some other studies that we looked at in other states around the country as well too. So we asked who made of those 12,000 people in the 900 that responded, who made upgrades and who used financing and who didn't, to try to get a handle on what kind of financing is being used in Vermont. Of those respondents, 74% did not use financing. So people have their own means of paying for these energy projects. So that means that only 26% used financing, and of those, we sort of broke it down into clean energy specific financing. So these are some of the specific products that are available. For instance, the Heat Saver loan. There's some solar power purchase agreements. NeighborWorks has a financing product. Solar lease. So a small percentage of those 26, about half of them use some specific financing. The other half use conventional financing, credit cards, unsecured personal loans, other financing that is available from the bank or the retailer or through the utility. So I think the takeaway here is that while financing is available to a lot of products out there, not everybody is going to use it to make their project happen. We asked them some questions too, and to try to dig in a little bit. What were some of the obstacles that discouraged homeowners who considered but did not complete a clean energy project? And you'll see this again from some of the interviews we did with business people as well too. High cost, as I mentioned before, is the number one obstacle. People are hesitant, whether you can finance or not, people are hesitant about spending money on a high cost project. Unwilling to take on new debt. This is probably more a New England or Vermont thing than we find in the rest of the country, but people just don't want to go into debt. So long payback periods, unpredictable rate of return on investment, lack of information, too busy, too confusing. You can see the list goes down. But really, people are concerned about moving forward with projects if it costs too much, and they're hesitant about taking on debt. We also asked them about offerings that might have motivated them to take on a clean energy project for those who didn't complete one. And again, we'll see this in some of the other findings from some of the other groups as well. 0% financing. So even if the project cost a lot, maybe they consider it if there was no financing costs associated with it. And a guarantee of financial savings as well too. So if somebody's willing to stand behind a project and say, if the savings don't show up, we're willing to pay the difference, or somehow make it up so that so what we predict will actually show up. And then there's a number of other, goes down the list, payments lower than the projected energy savings, so basically using energy savings to pay off the cost of the loan. If there's financing to roll together energy efficient projects, and other ways of financing as well. But really, 0% financing and a savings guarantee came up at the top of that list.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Were those options provided to them, or were those people?
Yeah, they were. Yeah. So it's multiple choice, and yeah. So I don't, whether there was an option for people to write in something as well. I don't recall.
Other, yeah.
Yeah, other. So this is, we sort of pulled out. There's a lot of words here, but I'll just go from the top of the list. But some of these are quite interesting. What we found with homeowners. So most people know they can take out 70%. Know they can take out traditional financing. People are aware that financing's out there and available, but they don't want to go into debt. We heard that before. Most homeowners who completed a project did not use financing. We talked about that. For the 26% who did, credit cards were the first go-to, and we weren't able to dig into whether they then financed the project on a credit card over the whole period of time, or whether they might have paid it off through another mechanism to pay off that high interest rate. So followed by bank loans and lines of credit. For those who use financing without it, so there's a 24% or 26% who use financing, they said it's a deal breaker. Without financing, they wouldn't have done a project. So while most don't use it for a project, for those that did, they need financing to make it work. It wasn't a major barrier to obtain financing. They still feel this work costs too much. We heard that before. And so nearly half of those who said they didn't want to do a project said the affordable financing might have helped them move forward, but it was really uncertain whether or not. And what does affordable mean? People are looking for interest rates 2 to 3%. And you'll see when we interview the lenders think that affordable means 5 or 6%. There's a little bit of disconnect here. All would really like 0% financing, but after that, they'll take a guarantee on the savings.
So 75% roughly didn't take financing, but did they know about the financing before they, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, most people do know that there's financing options out there. So if they wanted to do a project, they would have had to make the effort to go and find it, but I don't know the answer to these questions specifically. So we also interviewed businesses and commercial entities. This is not the contractors that do the work, but those that own businesses on the other end. And the general sentiment was that energy improvement, clean energy work costs too much. So they didn't, again, just like homeowners, they don't want to go into debt. They know that there are financing options available, and they don't think that financing is hard, but they'd appreciate a quicker and easier process to make that happen. For those that are willing to make a project happen and go through and go into debt as the process of getting there. They also, like the homeowners, they also think that a guarantee of the energy savings would help motivate them and move forward with the project. If somebody's willing to stand up there and say, yes, we guarantee that those savings will result. So this yes, these slides will be available. Yeah. So caveat, we're only able to, just based on the scope of the project, we're only able to talk to 17 businesses, but this again was corroborated with some research that was done in California that found similar results as well. We also talked to contractors and installers, and in general, so this is weatherization contractors, HVAC contractors who are putting in, and solar contractors as well. So most of them are aware of some of the products that are out there. The one at the top of the list is a heat saver loan. There's information upstairs on the heat saver loan. It's a great product available for homeowners. And then after that, there's a list of loans and leases that are out there that really didn't have the market recognition, less than 50%. Most of them, 85% knew about the heat saver loan. Most of them knew about some of these other ones, but not as great recognition. And I'm going to move through these just to make sure that we have. So we also asked them about what features they would be looking for as contractors. They want to make sure that for their customers, the application process is simple, that the heat saver loan is really pretty easy. It's a 1 or 2 page arrangement. It's basically a decision is made quickly within a day or two. It's got low interest rates, which is the second thing on the list. They would also like to see payments lower than the projected energy savings, so using the energy savings as a way to cover the payments of the financing product. Financing to cover non-energy improvements as well too. So we know that in many of these projects, it's not just about energy, but it might be fixing the leaky roof before you blow insulation in the ceiling, or other home or business improvements as well. Transferable payments, so that if a property is sold, there's a way to transfer the debt onto the next building owner. Flexible underwriting and some other features down the list as well. We talked to lenders, interviewed some lenders as well. Generally, they feel they're meeting their customers' needs. However, 31% of homeowners said that it was somewhat very difficult to obtain financing. So there's again a little bit of disconnect there. The lenders feel they're doing a good job, but of some portion of people out there don't feel like they're able to get what they're looking for. Lenders feel that they can't convince a customer to finance a clean energy project. I think this is right. The customer's got to want to do it. The lender's not going to convince somebody to do a project. Somebody's got to come forward with a project they want and then use that financing to help facilitate getting that done. 53% of the lenders offer a specialized product that's sort of an energy in the name or somehow focused on clean energy initiatives. So of the 47 that don't, 43% said that at one time they had, but there wasn't enough demand for it. So the lenders, I mean, the lenders said we have something available if people were asking us for it. They feel there are other issues that make clean energy projects challenging for customers to complete, such as complexity in technology, project scope. Again, high project cost comes up as well. So I'm not going to go through that chart there because I want to give my co-presenters time here, but I do want to say we did try to summarize the available products that are out there. You can't see these here, but we do have, I'll pass these around and these slides will be available, and they're also in here. So these they really are for residential, for business, and for municipal, universities, schools, and hospitals, the MUSH sector. There are a lot of products that are currently available out there. And so there's a listing of the category, who sponsors it, and a little description of each one. So it should be a good resource if people are looking for some specific financing products for your jurisdiction. And finally, findings, challenges and opportunities that we need to address. On the residential side, it would be great to have some funds available for credit enhancement. So for buying down interest rates down to that 2% or 0% for customers who want to use financing for their projects going forward. Underwriting process that actually take energy savings into account. Most of these products don't consider the fact that when you spend this money, the customer's cash flow position is going to be better because they're spending less on energy, and they can redirect those savings into paying for loan payment. That's not considered for the most part. Energy savings guarantees, we saw that at the top of the list. There are not many out there, although there are some initiatives being worked on right now to put those in place. And the report references some of those that are being done elsewhere, and there are some pilot programs being talked about in Vermont right now. On the commercial side, or business, underwriting process that takes into account the energy savings, as I just mentioned on the residential side, same concept. Looking for off-balance sheet finance options to better position the business. And then there's some references there as well on some of the guarantee efforts at Jewel and Efficiency Capital. And we'll hear about a couple projects here as well, or at least one on the commercial side here. And institutional and MUSH, there's not much capital available right now. It'd be great to have more for these projects. And short-term, one of the problems is short-term loans that don't really match with the longer-term paybacks of some of these larger cost projects. So it would also be great for future initiatives like this one to have a way to track financing projects going forward. There's no coordinated, consistent tracking system, so it's really hard to have a baseline and being able to sort of see what's going on in the marketplace with products and initiatives going forward. So sorry to go through that so quickly. If you want more, it's available online, and we'd be happy to answer questions afterwards. And I'm going to now pass things on to Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike Davey with Energy Efficient Investments, or EEI, and we do energy performance contracting. Just as a show of hands, is anyone familiar with energy performance contracting, or is this a new concept? All right, so a little bit, 2 or 3. So energy performance contracting is a way to finance projects over time so that the energy savings pays for the improvements. It's very common in school districts, municipalities, cities and towns, as well as hospitals, universities. It's not really a tool that I'm aware of on the residential side, so it's really geared toward larger projects.
Yeah, I would do the down arrow there,
Oh,
I think.
sorry.
Uh,
Down arrow. Our company EEI has been, it was incorporated in 2007. We're owned by E&E Systems, which is the largest independent energy management company in New England. And we have offices in New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, and we are hoping to, in the very near future, open up a Vermont office. We've completed some recent projects for the Addison Northwest School District, which is a new school district that's made up of Addison, Ferrisburg, and Virgins. And then a couple years ago at the Bennington, Vermont School District. What these projects were, and I'll go into some more detail, a lot of the schools have aging heating systems, fluorescent lighting, lack of controls so that they're running heat all night. I do the energy audits of these projects, and I can't help doing an energy audit of the room we're in. We have fluorescent lighting that's running, which can be replaced by LED, which can reduce it by a third, and then a non-programmable thermostat on the wall. So just these little things that I see in this space are at almost every Vermont school that I run into in town buildings. There's the huge energy savings, for example, of taking that light, which is burning 3 30-watt tubes, so about 90 watts. You can replace that with an LED fixture that does about 26 watts. The payback on something like that is 3 years. So if you can measure, if you can take the energy savings from lighting upgrades and changing out thermostats to programmable, shutting it off when there's no one here, those all have 2 to 3 year paybacks. You can leverage that with, for example, putting in a new boiler, which might have a 20 or 30 year payback. You combine these things together, the 2 and 3 year paybacks with the 30 year, and you can go out to the voters and say, we can do all of this work, get a new heating plant, preferably a renewable fuel heating plant, with a solid payback. In Bennington, the package that we put together passed with 70% of the vote, and the school district's budget only passed with 60%. So it was extremely popular. And in Virgins, or the Addison project, Renewable was a portion of it. So we put a 300 kilowatt solar system on the roof of the high school in Virgins. And so there's a way of taking these nice paybacks like LED lights, better controls, and in spaces like this, we put in occupancy-based controls so that you're only running the lights in the heat when there's people in the space. Otherwise, you go to a setback. In New Hampshire, this performance contracting is even more common. I don't think there are many towns and cities in New Hampshire that haven't taken advantage of this. And what do New Hampshire and Vermont have in common? A lot. Politics, not always, but New Hampshire is trending a little bit more like Vermont. What is that both those programs, both those states for various reasons have stopped school building aid. So, for example, years ago, Vermont schools used to get a substantial portion of their construction budgets paid for by the state. The same thing in New Hampshire. I think it was tied to the recession when the tax revenue started declining. Well, that stopped giving schools funds for new buildings or for upgrades. Performance contracting is a way to take energy savings and go forward with an improvement project that doesn't have much of a tax impact, because the energy savings from the renewable and energy efficiency are offsetting the construction costs. In the ideal world, there's zero tax impact, meaning you do a project, the energy savings completely pay for it. And we've done several projects that had no tax impact. Occasionally, like in the Bennington situation, they had so many pipes that were steam and end of life that we had to repipe the building. So those costs made the project, it was about a 32-year payback, financed with a 20-year bond, but the energy savings paid 80% of the bond cost. So the tax impact was very small for the citizens of Bennington. And so, again, the Keene School District, we've done almost all the buildings in Keene. And in Shaker School District, which is Belmont and Canterbury, the Lakes region of New Hampshire, we brought all the buildings to renewable wood heat. So that was a building that district used 120,000 gallons of oil 5 years ago. Now they use no oil. It's completely wood heat. And this is an example of the LED 29-watt fixtures that replace 90-watt fixtures in a classroom in Belmont.
Do you ever do Keene State College's project?
I do
They're
not.
like 90% now.
Yes, Keene State uses a biofuel, so I believe they kept their oil boilers, but they're using some type of blended renewable fuel. I don't know how it gets together.
I thought they had a lot of solar. I saw it wrong.
Yes, they do. They do have some solar as well. Yeah. Again, one of the things in gyms, every time if you have fluorescent lighting in your gym, it's difficult to get to. Sometimes you have to rent a lift. They're 20 feet up, and they burn out fairly frequently. Those can be replaced with LED products, which are supposed to last 18 years in that condition. So there's maintenance savings a lot of times with these projects as well. How are energy projects funded? It varies with municipalities and school districts. The simplest way is to just put it in the budget. So I have one school district in New Hampshire, Chesterfield, which is just over the border from Brattleboro. They're a small school district, just a single K through 8 school. What they do is just every year put an energy efficiency line item in the budget, and they chip away at their building over time. In Addison and Bennington, Addison School District in Bennington, Vermont, they did a warrant article to all their voters where the energy savings were explained. And we're working with 2 more Vermont school districts in the next couple of years towards similar warrant articles. One of those is Mill River, and the other is Chittenden East. So we're working with both those districts toward potentially a plan to go to energy savings. And another way is the school boards or town boards under Vermont state law. If the payback is less than 10 years, it's my reading of the law that you don't have to get voter approval. The law pretty clearly wanted to streamline some of these, so the boards have authorization to finance a tax-neutral project with less than a 10-year payback. This is the Vermont Performance Contracting Law. It was put in 2013, and if anybody wants to look it up, it's Title 16. It allows for funding for the project to be financed up to 20 years. It also allows for lease financing. And one important note is an RFP must be issued. So as much as I would love everyone to just hire us right away, you do have to put an RFP out, and you typically get qualified companies that will respond and hopefully select one. The energy savings pay for the project over time is the intent of it. I will say the barriers to getting these projects done, in my opinion, has never been financing. There's a lot of different ways to get these done, whether it's budget, whether it's bonding, leasing. When I've seen these projects not happen when they could, it's the lack of an internal champion. So I would say the number one takeaway from this is there's definitely financing tools out there. There's companies like mine and other companies that do this stuff that can help the process along. But what we need in Vermont and New Hampshire is internal champions to say, we want to get energy efficient. We want to get renewable in our portfolio. How do we get it done? Yep.
When you say internal,
Yep.
do you mean member of the school board, member of school staff as taking a school district, or do you mean member of the community?
I mean all of the above. But I honestly think it only needs to be one. So I'll give you an example. in New Hampshire, there's a school district called Jaffrey Ringe. It's 2 towns that are probably the 2 most conservative towns in the state. The police never get new vehicles, the fire never gets new vehicles. They just don't want to spend on municipal projects. And in fact, more than 40% of the kids in that district go to private school. So they don't even have a love for funding their schools. There was one woman on the Ringe Energy Committee, which was a committee of 3 people that met occasionally, and she came to seminars like this and said, we need to do this, we need to do this. So she went to a school board and spoke, here's an idea for you, and then she followed up with emails to the school board. She actually went to the New Hampshire equivalent of Efficiency Vermont and got them to do a free audit, and so then she brought that to the school. And then she finally got some momentum, and they issued an RFP. They did a project, and it passed overwhelmingly because it was structured in a zero tax impact way. So it was a $2 million project. We went to biomass heating and got them off of oil on their largest buildings, energy efficient, renewable product, and it passed with overwhelming support in a place where they said they never support anything. So that it does work. It just needs that internal champion. It's nice if it's the superintendent or the business manager, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be someone who goes to a school board meeting and says, hey, Virgins is doing this, Bennington did this, but has our school looked at it? I will say, like, those are the projects I've done in Vermont, but performance contracting has a long history here. So a company called Honeywell did a project for Montpelier, I think 2014-15 time period, and then Johnson Controls did some projects in the Rutland area not too long ago with Otter Valley High School. Typically, an energy performance goals are to improve your building, reduce energy cost, increase renewable. For schools, solar and biomass have been the most popular. A little bit of geothermal, but I'd say for Vermont has, I'd say, more square foot of wood heat than any other state around. So wood heat has definitely been the front runner in Vermont. Again, we want to create a project that is cost neutral, which the energy savings pay for the project over time, reduce your consumption, and then the energy savings are guaranteed. So that's an important part of this, is that there's a guarantee on the energy savings over time.